Are you curious about what yoga looks like off the mat, or keen to hear how yogis all around the world live? This show will let you in on the secret that there's no such thing as a perfect yogi. Welcome to the Plant-Powered Yoga Podcast. Please welcome your host, yoga teacher, coffee lover, vegan, and known as the Plant-Powered Yogi, Jess Ivers. Hello everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Plant-Powered Yoga Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode, which is all about how to be an ethical yogi. Now, this isn't going too much into the nitty-gritty old Sanskrit texts or anything like that. It's more about how to be an ethical yogi in your everyday life. And I guess I see this as two approaches. So looking in, looking out. So what are some of the things that you can do internally, change you can make personally to be a bit more ethical with your choices, as well as the choices you might make when attending yoga studios or doing things out and about in the world. So I guess they do come together, but one is internal, one is external. And again, this is a podcast of no judgment. This isn't a thing telling you what you should be doing, but just something to consider and think about with some things that have been on my mind lately. Firstly, I guess most of you know about my veganism, and obviously this is called the Plant-Powered Yoga Podcast, so that will sum up a lot of things just in the title. And while I'm not saying explicitly that being vegan completely cleanses your soul and enlightens you, reducing your consumption of animal products goes a long way when trying to be more ethical in your everyday life. Consumption of meat and dairy is incredibly damaging for the environment. Swapping your meals for vegetarian options every now and then is a really easy, simple way to lessen your impact. So I guess that's coming from an internal point of view, where the choices, the things that you can put in your body that can hopefully have a better impact on the environment, on your health, eating more veggies. Mum always told me when I was younger, got to eat more veggies, and now all I want to do is eat veggies, and she's like, no. So eat more veggies and do better things. Another way to look at being a little more ethical with your choices are, what are some of the yoga products that I use? Maybe what are they made of? I have always loved using my own yoga mat over using ones ever provided at studios. And since COVID has hit, that's more common than not with a lot of people. A lot of people are choosing to use their own mats and their own things now rather than sharing items. And I think it's good in a way that people have maybe invested in some good quality yoga gear. But then there's also that aspect of, if you're buying something new, even if it is from an ethical company, and you're someone that wants to try and buy things secondhand or wants to try and use other things without having to buy something new, then what do you do in this situation? My yoga mat that I have is a mukti mat and cost about $100. And that was a lot for me to spend on a yoga mat, but that was maybe 3.5, almost 4 years ago now, and I still use that mat almost every single day. And it's the one I got, the mukti mat, is great for me. It's nice and long, nice and big. I'm considered extra tall, I guess, and very grippy. So that's my recommendation. This is not sponsored by them at all. This is just my personal choice of mats that I really like. If you are someone like me who sweats a lot in practice and you don't want to feel like you're sliding all over the joint, I can highly recommend this mat. And they're just one of the range of yoga mats that are out there that are made ethically. They biodegrade after use, so after a while, not while you're using it. And when they reach the end of their life, they're not going to just sit in landfill anymore. And other places or products that you can look for, or other types of yoga mat, the mukti mats are made of jute and recycled rubber. Another one is cork mats, which are also quite ethically made and in terms of environmentally friendly, good for you. I've spoken about clothes and how to be an ethical yogi in terms of what you wear and what you put on your body back in season 1. So you can go back and listen to that episode to hear my thoughts on what brands are the best to wear if you want to keep your practice clean when it comes to the clothes that you wear. And in terms of other things that you can be doing to be an ethical yogi, and this comes down to what you might be doing when attending classes and supporting studios. And I think that's more important than ever now. COVID happened and a lot of really great places had to shut, and places that really did the right thing. And, whether that's unfortunate that because they were paying people correctly, using proper items, that unfortunately the businesses wasn't sustainable in a time where people didn't have disposable income anymore. So first things first, on how to be an ethical yogi when attending a class, maybe look at what's close to you. And assuming that many people listening to this may not be in a city, maybe like me, and are able to walk to classes. And, that was something when I was a bit displaced from Melbourne recently, that there wasn't a class that I could just walk to or go to. There wasn't even any classes where I was for quite a while. And when there was, it wasn't super far, but, it was a good 20-minute walk for me to get there. So there wasn't just something around the corner. But if you're somewhere where you can look at what yoga studios are around you, and hopefully one that you like and enjoy, and the teachers you enjoy going to their classes, that your footprint literally will be less on the planet than you would by going somewhere that's maybe a bit further away that you maybe have to drive to. So not only if you choose somewhere a little closer to you, you're saving money by not driving, you're also not contributing any more greenhouse gases by hopping in the car, turning it on, keeping the air clean around you, which is something pretty important. And then maybe when you get to that yoga studio, you're seeing what products they use. And if they're a small studio, maybe they don't have the budget to afford the latest and best sustainable products, which is okay. But, do they care for their equipment, ensuring it does last? It doesn't have to be anything amazing, but having blocks or straps that will last the test of time, not crumble, fall apart, ensure that the products are getting a full life. So as nice as it is, again, to go to a studio that might have all the latest, nicest products and things, fully aware that that's not possible for everyone. Yoga gear can be expensive, and like I said, my yoga mat costs $100. I'm sure if a yoga studio is buying things in bulk, that they do come a little cheaper, but if you're wanting good quality things, that's a really big investment for a yoga studio to make. And yeah, it's awesome when you can go to places that do have that. But if you're supporting small business, which is also, I think, a really ethical choice, looking around you rather than maybe going to a franchise, or rather than going somewhere that has places all over, you support the smaller business. And yeah, they might have, their mats aren't as fancy dancy as the ones at the biggest studio around the corner, but they're going to care for it a lot more because their heart and soul is in that. And in terms of their budget, they're going to make sure they're going to have things that are going to last. And one of the final things about being an ethical yogi, now this is a little bit hard to maybe investigate, but just might be something that now that you've had a think about it, you might be open to looking at a little bit more. And that's, what do the teachers at the yoga studio or who's taking your class get paid? One of the issues, unfortunately, with yoga is that there's no governing body that makes sure yoga teachers are treated fairly when it comes to their working conditions. And this isn't comparing a yoga teacher's job to anything worse. There are people that work in horrible situations that have absolutely no working rights at all. And this is not comparing yoga teaching to that. But yoga teachers don't get sick leave or holiday pay. And when you are sick, not only do you have to then take on the task of getting someone to cover for you, people who come to the class are still expecting that there's going to be a teacher there. So you might not be feeling so great, but you've got to find someone to cover for you while you're not feeling very well. You don't get holiday pay, which, that's not something that's super important to me, as someone who's been a freelancer in other work for so long anyway. But what can happen is when you want to take a break, you might lose your job altogether. And that actually happened to me. I wanted to take a couple of weeks off from my other work, and then I wanted to go and see my family. And I, in total, was taking about 6 classes off over the space of about 2.5 months. And I got told that was disruptive for the students, and so therefore I would no longer be working there. And that was obviously pretty crappy and quite unfair. But again, there's nothing really that we can kind of do about that. Teachers work for themselves, and we need to ensure that we're putting money aside for things like tax and superannuation, and they're all really annoying adult things. I have put myself in situations where I've let myself be underpaid, and that's a regret I have. I can't do anything about it now, and I'm not here to sit and whine about that, but that was a really big lesson learned, and also just about my worth as well. And I guess that's where this comes into it, is knowing what your teachers are worth. Like any job, you would do it because you do it for free because you love it so much. But unfortunately, we're in an economy and in a world where we need to pay bills, and we need to pay rent to be able to live. And unfortunately, the world just doesn't run off good vibes and positive energy. So we're working, and we deserve to be paid appropriately for our work and for the work that's gone into being a yoga teacher. Things like getting your training completed, which can cost thousands of dollars. And then on top of all of that, things that can add up to the thousands of dollars, like insurance, getting certification from different places, your first aid, your CPR, any other things, they can all add up, and they all cost hundreds of dollars. So before you've even taught a yoga class, a teacher's already invested thousands of dollars to be able to teach. And that's like a lot of professions. But unfortunately, for some reason, yoga teachers are seen as, they'll just do it for free because it's just something that they love to do. No, we deserve to be paid. And that might be something that, you look into at a studio, where depending how much classes are and what kind of model they use, just ensuring that the teacher is getting paid appropriately. And I know the world is not made of good vibes and all of that, but what does make an ethical yogi is that what you then learn, you can then pass on or let it flow forward. So being kind, using kind words, kind actions, having kind thoughts. We can go to all the yoga we want, but if there's still attitudes of hatred, jealousy, bitterness, that cycle of peace will stop. And so maybe your version, or maybe your contribution to being an ethical yogi, is to stay kind and be positive in your thoughts, words, and actions, and let that keep flowing. And much like yoga, I've said before, you'll never leave a yoga class feeling worse than how you came in. And yoga is a real gift to teach and to practice. And by continuing to practice and continuing to share all of the love and all the good things that come with it, is going to help the world hopefully go around that little bit nicer in this reasonably troubled time. Thank you for listening to this episode. It was a bit of a mind ramble, but just some things I feel like I needed to say and to put down in this episode. So if you have any questions about anything that I have spoken about in today's episode, then you can contact me by visiting my website. And next week's episode is the last one for this season, with the wonderful Rhiannon from Team Timbuktu, who, speaking about ethical yogis and ethical yoga wear, Team Timbuktu make ethical yoga active wear that is made from recycled water bottles, and we go into that detail of how she actually makes them and how they make their products, which I'm very excited to share with you. And then that will be the final episode for this season before a little break, and then coming back for season 3. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you for next week's episode.
Thanks again for listening to the Plant Powered Yoga podcast. For more information, visit plantpoweredyoga.com or visit the show notes below. I'd love it if you could rate, review, or even share this podcast with a friend. Thanks so much for helping create a kinder world, and see you next time.